IVM.
Have you ever wondered why women don't do more crime?
Well, we're here to tell you there's misconduct all the time.
Women are thieves and murderers.
That's gross misconduct.
Con artists, money launderers.
Criminal misconduct.
Financial fraud that's hard to track.
Takes some planning, but still misconduct.
Even breaching a contract.
That's more civil though.
It's misconduct. It's misconduct. We tell you all about women that suck. Things that make you say, what the? It's misconduct.
Hello, and welcome to Misconduct. This is a podcast on which we talk about criminal women, mostly Indian, and this is the last episode of season 3. I am Raghavi.
And I am Nisha. And oh my God, we're at the end of season 3.
I know.
It's insane.
I didn't... remember when you said 12 people will listen to us? It is now 24. Aha!
I said 12 people will listen to us, and I also said Jesus had 12 followers and he's doing fine. I think we will too.
He was not doing fine for a very long time.
Except for that one guy.
For those 3 days, he was really out of commission, Nisha.
It's fine. Everyone deserves a break. We are also going to go on a 3-month break.
Shut up. You can't go for a break for a whole quarter. That's not how anything works.
But today's episode is about Jolly Joseph, a Kerala woman who was in the news a lot starting from 2019.
Yep.
Usually what we do is give you an idea of what she may have done even before the episode really starts. But instead of giving you a summary about her, let's instead take you on a different path. Let's take you through this chronologically. Through all the events of her life from when she was born until when she ended up on national and international news. And we'll see if you land up where the rest of us did in 2019. So some disclaimers before we begin though. This episode has detailed descriptions of murders, serial killings, including the murder of a child, poisoning, substance abuse, sex trafficking, and suicide. This podcast, and definitely this particular episode, is not suitable for children. For all of our other listeners, please exercise your discretion.
All right, so let's start with Jolly Joseph's early life. Jolly was born as Jolly Amma Joseph in the year 1972. Her family was full of conservative Christians, and her father, whose name is C.C. Joseph, was a farmer and a ration shop operator. Her mother, Teresa Amma, was a homemaker, and her parents were not really educated, in the professional sort of sense. They were literate, which means that they could read and write the local language Malayalam, and they had gone through basic schooling. But they were not graduates and they weren't considered degree holders. Jolly also has a younger brother named Nobi. We don't hear much about him though. They weren't very close as a family, as far as we can tell. Jolly went to school in Kattapana, which is a small town in the district of Idukki in the state of Kerala. For anyone who would spot the family, they just appeared to be an ordinary, largely content Malayali Christian family from a very small town. The kind of family, by the way, that spent, their days at work, their evenings at home, and their Sundays at church. So it's not known whether their family was particularly well off, though a little unlikely considering the nature of work that her dad did. But Jolly definitely wanted more than that for herself. She didn't want that agrarian, merchant sort of life.
Right.
And she knew the best way to achieve that social mobility in India at the time was to be educated. She had seen many of her friends and batchmates especially study really hard, get a good education, and head off to do these amazing jobs in the city. Or if they were really lucky, they would get jobs in the Middle East.
Of course.
Yeah, it's Kerala. Like the exodus to the Gulf is not, we say it as a joke sometimes, but it's real,
It is.
Yes, and Jolly wanted that more for herself. She thought that's what she deserved. That's why instead of joining her father at his humble business, Jolly decided she wanted an education. So she joined college right after school in the early 1990s, and she went on to complete both her bachelor's and master's in commerce.
In 1997, right after Jolly graduated with a master's degree, she attended a wedding in a town called Kuduttai. She was all of 25 years old, fresh-faced and incredibly pretty. The last part is relevant because at this wedding, she met a man named Roy Thomas. So Roy was from the town of Kuduttai. He was from a very well-to-do and respected family called the Thomases. Their family name was also Ponnamattam, which is named after the place that they were originally from. His family included his father, Tom Thomas, who was a former teacher. Before his teaching stint, Tom was an administrative officer in the Kerala State Education Department. Roy's mother was Annamma Thomas, also a retired teacher. So as you can see, this family is quite like well educated and they respect things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Roy was the oldest son of this family. He had a younger sister, Renji, and a younger brother, Rojo.
Right.
So like I said, the Thomases really valued education. Like it was the biggest thing for them. And that their family be smart and literate and successful, that's where they got most pride as a family. In fact, the Ponnamattam family was considered an informal council of sorts for the whole town. People would come to them with their troubles as they were the first household in the area where everyone was well educated.
That's right. But back to 1997 though, in Kudathai. At this time, Roy was working in Hyderabad and he had come back to Kerala to attend the wedding. This wedding that he was attending was happening at the house of Matthew Manchidigal, who was his mother's brother. This is where he spotted Jolly. And it is said that they instantly fell in love. In a year, it was just pretty cute. Like from descriptions that I've seen about them, it seemed like a pretty adorable meet cute. So yeah, in less than a year, they were married, essentially. And the Thomas family accepted Jolly with open arms. I mean, what's not to like? She was well educated. She was good looking. She was also looking for a job. She was ready to work. She wanted to contribute to the family. It just seemed like the ideal daughter-in-law for them, considering the kind of family they were. The other thing though was the family was a little bit concerned for Roy because unlike the rest of his siblings, Roy was not very inclined towards holding a job. His parents, like we said, were both university teachers. They were very well off. And their position, as an influential family in the town, that sort of gave him a bit of arrogance. And I think he sort of assumed, I'll be fine. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Roy and his father, Tom, would often have many fights over his inability to focus on schoolwork or, work diligently at a proper occupation. And this friction was sort of consistent within the Thomases. And his parents really wanted Roy to find a way to settle down. And they thought of Jolly as the perfect vessel for this. And she turned up at exactly the right time for them to be like, hey, you know what? She will help him settle. Look at her. Look how accomplished she is. Look how ambitious she is. This is perfect for Roy.
Perfect woman to fix this boy. Correct.
Oh, I didn't think of it like that.
Yep.
Well, she took it on though. She didn't seem to mind it.
Yeah.
Our good old Jolly. So in 1998, when Roy and Jolly were married, the family were very, very happy. They disregarded Jolly's background as a farmer's daughter. They really thought that's not relevant. They didn't care about where the person came from. It was about how diligently they wanted to maintain a good and honorable life for themselves.
Jolly and Roy's married life started off beautiful and romantic, pretty much like a Mani Ratnam movie. They even had a meet cute at a wedding.
That's true.
The couple were very happy and Jolly's in-laws treated her like a princess. In a few months, however, tragedy struck and her husband Roy lost his job.
Oh man.
So he and Jolly lived together in the Ponnamattam house and their encouraging family did not really press them to look for a job as soon as possible. However, a few months into it, the issue of money came up.
Yeah.
So you see, Tom Thomas and Annamma were both retired. They were well into their 50s and they could not continue working, definitely not in academics.
Okay.
They did have a humble pension, but it would not be adequate for the entire family. But somehow they managed for a few years. They dipped into their savings just to make sure that, they don't make the newlywed couple feel like they're not welcome in this house.
Wow, that's really accommodating.
Right?
I would have
It's very
kicked them
sweet.
out. I'm sorry. I'll be very honest with you. It's just me and the cats. Everyone else leave.
And Jolly and Roy obviously got super comfortable. They would also go on to have 2 children during this time, 2 beautiful boys. They were like the apple of the eye for the whole family. The boys brought their grandparents so much joy that grandparents honestly did not feel like the pennies were being pinched. So
Right.
instead of cats, it was 2 boys.
I understand.
But eventually the coffers ran out, and while the house itself was well appraised, the family could no longer continue on just the pension income.
And that's when Jolly stepped in. So she said, to the in-laws that while her husband was working on his resume, trying to figure out a new job, she would go out and get a job instead. And in less than a week, she came back with an offer letter to a local college where she would be teaching commerce subjects. And the family was like, whoa, this is amazing. They were ecstatic. Like they were all educators in their lifetimes, right?
Right.
So this was, perfect for them. It was perfect that Jolly was also an educator. So Jolly diligently traveled to work every day and she came back with lovely stories of her pupils. And she seemed to love her job. Like she seemed to get quite a bit of satisfaction from it. In a couple of years, she also managed to upgrade that job. So she joined the National Institute of Technology in Calicut, which is a premier institution in the state. And she joined as an assistant professor.
Nice.
That's a big deal. Like it's not really easy to get that, And of course, this is a huge honor for the family, this upgrade, in her professional experience. And they were really, really happy with this development. And she was also making good money. So Jolly would basically even upgrade her humble scooter to a Honda City car, which was a symbol of the family's pride in their daughter-in-law.
But just like all of the excessively happy stories that we have heard so far, Jolly's life would soon take a very drastic turn towards tragedy.
Oh man.
In August 2002, Jolly's mother-in-law, Annamma, was in the living room with her, eating some mutton soup. And then suddenly, she fell over and started frothing in the mouth.
Oh, God.
Annamma was rushed to the hospital by Jolly and the family right away. But unfortunately, she passed away.
Oh.
So the doctors ruled her death as one of cardiac arrest and she was about 57 years old.
Oh, okay. That's still young.
Yeah, it is quite young. So naturally, the family was devastated. Annamma was kind of their matriarch. She handled the affairs of the family, money, their property, daily expenses. So it was kind of losing like a big figurehead for the family. Her husband, Tom, was absolutely inconsolable. He would spend many years grieving her, just feeling utter loss and despair over her demise.
So it was not surprising that in 2008, a 66-year-old grief-stricken Tom would pass away. So he was eating a bowl of smashed tapioca and apparently he collapsed and began convulsing. The neighbors rushed him to the hospital, but he passed away on the way. In his will, though, the Ponnamattam house and a significant chunk of the family's savings were left with Roy and Jolly. This is because in the 6 years between Annamma passing and, till Tom passed away as well, he had developed sort of a friendship and camaraderie with Jolly. He trusted Jolly a lot in these years and depended on her quite a bit as well. And he sort of saw her as a good fit for the home and sort of a decent heir, to manage the household duties like Annamma did. Tom trusted Jolly so much that he sold 2.5 acres of another land that he possessed and put about 18 to 20 lakhs in her account directly instead of Roy's account, I guess he's also just trusted that to handle the money better, I suppose.
Yeah.
After Tom's death, though, Jolly and Roy continued to live in that house. But all was not well with the couple. This is a series of tragedies that have happened. I'm sure it took a toll on them. And in the years that followed Annamma's death, especially, Jolly had given a lot of her self-earned money to Roy to start businesses. So first, initially, he had started an engine oil business, which tanked very quickly. Later, Bandy started a ready-made garments business, which also did not make it. And a year after that, he apparently started drinking to drown his sorrows.
Damn. On 9th September 2011, after Jolly woke up from a deep slumber with her children, she walked down to the living room and noticed that her husband had not eaten any of the food that she prepared for him.
Okay.
So that must mean like he ate his, like whatever last meal that he had was at lunchtime. So why did he deprive himself like this? Also, he hadn't come to bed that night. So where was he?
Okay.
This was really odd because Roy had neither eaten that night nor come to bed. Turns out that unfortunately, Roy had fallen and hurt himself down in the downstairs bathroom.
Oh, okay.
So when Jolly found him, she found that he had vomited all over the bathroom
Oh, God.
and was in severe pain and he could not even speak.
Oh, God. Okay.
And she freaked out and she rushes him to the hospital, but then he dies on the way.
What?
He was 40 years old at the time of his death.
That's very young.
And Jolly was left with 2 children to raise, widowed at the very young age of 39.
Man, this is just...
Yeah.
This poor woman.
Sad. I know.
Yeah.
Also, remember we were talking about Roy's uncle Matthew, the uncle who owned the house that the couple had first met in and during their wedding.
Yeah.
So Matthew was very close to Roy, but he was kind of confused over what happened.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, because Roy is a young man, no medical ailments. What happened? Now, Roy's brother Rojo was also confused. So they asked the medical officers to conduct an autopsy and something really weird came up.
Okay.
The autopsy found trace amounts of cyanide in his body.
Cyanide like the poison?
Yes,
Oh.
exactly like the poison.
All right, so in cases like this, especially when an autopsy is filed and something untoward is found, an FIR must be filed. The automatic suspicion in these situations is foul play. But Jolly knew what had happened and she had to come clean. She went to Matthew and Rojo and she told them about Roy's failed businesses, how he had lost so much money and how he was in so much debt, and the fact that he had to be rescued by his wife and her inheritance and the little money Dad had left them, He was also extremely depressed at the fact that his father, Tom, had handed over affairs of the house to Jolly directly, including money. And apparently it hurt him a lot that they did not even trust their own firstborn son. And that
Right.
caused quite a bit of friction between, him and Jolly as well. Jolly also mentioned that Roy drank every night and sometimes even in the mornings. That is a clear addiction. It became very apparent to Rojo that the case was one of suicide. If the police decided to investigate it, then Roy's unfortunate past would be out in the public domain. And these guys had a reputation to maintain in
Yep.
that town, right?
Yep.
So Rojo decided, you know what? What's done is done. Let's allow my brother to move on without sorrow. And Rojo withdrew the complaint. And he returned to the US, which is where he lived. On the day that Roy died, Jolly was heard screaming over and over that she was unable to feed him the last morsel of food herself before he passed away. Rojo believed her, but Matthew, unfortunately, was still confused.
Although he wasn't confused for very long because Matthew passed away in 2012.
Oh.
Yeah. In what feels like an enactment of the phrase curiosity kills the cat, Matthew's death would actually be very similar to Tom's death.
Okay.
The police determined that it was either his morning coffee or just something that he may have been allergic to. But he was also older. He was almost like 67 years old and he's seen his family go through so many misfortunes. And,
Right.
it just feels maybe this is just a hereditary thing now.
Okay.
So, so the extended family just presumed that, okay, I guess it's grief. And the case was not investigated and it was closed.
Dude, you know what? Grief is just so confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, I know, I've heard of so many stories of people dying of broken
Yeah.
hearts,
Yeah.
We've heard so many of that. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what happened.
Yeah.
But poor Jolly, though, in all of this, she
Oh,
was
man.
basically alone in the world, All she had now were her two sons. And Jolly grieved for a very, very long time. But in
Yeah.
2017, however, Jolly allowed herself to move on and she found love in a hopeless place.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to put that in there. This is too dark. I shouldn't have said that. My apologies. So Roy's cousin Shaju, who was the son of Tom's brother, he had lost his wife Silly about a year before that in 2016. Now, unfortunately, Shaju's 2-year-old daughter Alphine had also passed away in 2014. She reportedly choked on some bread at the village church. So Jolly had known Silly and Alphine as well, and she grieved with Shaju when they passed away. And united in their grief, with no one else who could understand what they were going through, Jolly and Shaju developed a very close friendship, and over time that friendship turned into love. The couple, brought together by unfortunate tragedy but united by love, were married in 2017.
And that is the tragic story of Jolly's life so far. The life of a beautiful, educated, dedicated wife, mother, and daughter-in-law, torn apart by mishappenings and tragedies that we would never wish on anyone else. It just makes me so immensely sad that women go through such awful times, but I guess it makes me feel good also that they emerge from it stronger, more resilient. And
Right.
I mean, it's terrible that all of this had to happen at all, but I really hope she went on to live like a decent life after this.
Yeah, I mean, as decent a life as you can have in jail.
What? Dun dun dun.
The drama is so unnecessary.
How dare you say that? Okay, I already knew this, obviously.
Yeah.
But yes, in October 2019, Jolly Joseph would be arrested by the Kozhikode police for the alleged murder of her husband, Roy Thomas. Over the next several months, many more charges would be slapped on her. Charges such as the murder of her parents-in-law, Tom Thomas and Anama, the murder of her uncle-in-law, Matthew Manjadil, and the most chilling one of all, the murder of her current husband's former wife, Silly, and of course, his infant daughter, Alphine.
Cool, let's take a small break here. When we come back, how did Jolly, who was never suspected in any of this stuff, suddenly get arrested? We will see you in a minute.
wonder why China does the things that it does, or want to know how we could improve online privacy, or perhaps you're thinking about how we can kickstart India's economy. If you'd like to search for the answers to such questions, check out All Things Policy, a daily public policy podcast that covers everything from employment figures to aircraft carriers. Tune in from Monday to Friday for new episodes and fresh takes.
Welcome back, everyone. After the break, we know we scammed you with a beautiful story and then we surprised you with murder.
Sorry.
But now we're at the pivotal stage of the case, which is how did it even become a case?
Right.
So do you remember Roy Thomas's younger brother, Rojo, the one in the US?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 2018, Rojo decided that something really fishy was going on.
Okay.
And he hired a private investigator. This happened right after he found out that his ancestral home was bequeathed to his sister-in-law, Jolly Joseph, by his father, Tom. Now, Jolly and Roy had already received money that was made from the sale of another property of Tom's. This ancestral Ponnamatam home was supposed to go to his sister, Renji. In fact, Tom had specifically told Rojo this. So when the house went to Jolly, Rojo suspected that something was up. So he returned to Kerala from the US around late 2017 after he heard this news. He also found out at this time that there were two versions of his father's will.
Okay.
One will perfectly signed, attested and sealed, under which Renji was given the house.
Okay.
Another will under which Jolly and Roy received the house.
What?
Now the second will was not properly sealed and it did not have the signatures of any witnesses. It also came out of nowhere. No one else in the family had heard about it, but it was dated more recently.
Okay.
And the family had agreed that it was applicable over the old will. And then Rojo and Renji heard that Jolly and Shaju were married just a year after Shaju's wife Silly had died. They asked around, and one of the neighbors mentioned that Jolly announced her intention to marry Shaju less than 3 months after Silly's death.
Okay.
Yeah, this was not the story that they had heard from Jolly. So what is going on, guys?
My brain is really buzzing. And that's not from the 6 cups of coffee I had today. Oh, but you know what? Rojo did something now that I give a lot of credit for. You know how there are some of these cases where, we hear people get some information and they think, let me investigate it. I am Nancy Drew / Hardy Boy or another. Wow, this is pretty gendered. I'm sorry. What I meant is, sure. But essentially what they do is they say, let me look it up. I want to. I am the best detective. But Rojo instead did something that I give him credit for. He decided to get actual documentation.
Nice.
Instead of going around and be like, let me go to this house that looks haunted. No. He said, I'm going to go to the local public offices and ask for a right to information application. And that's what he did. Yeah. In 2018, he filed a series of applications under the Right to Information Act. So this gave him access to about, multiple public documents. But the things that were really important for him were 2 things. One was Roy's autopsy report, which, remember, the family had requested for the autopsy. And it was found that cyanide consumption was the cause of, or at least there were trace, some evidence of cyanide in his body. The second set of documents were actually what was furnished by Jolly to the Revenue Department in relation to the ancestral property. Now, when he got these documents, Rojo his mind flipped because to his horror, the autopsy report said that Roy had last eaten food at 8:30 p.m. the night that he had died. Yeah, this was in direct contrast to what Jolly had said because she said his last meal was lunch that he had eaten at home. Remember, she specifically said, I wish he had eaten the last morsel from my hand. The next documents, though, were the revenue papers, and Rojo found out that they were forged. So the documents that were given to the revenue department in order to transfer the property from Tom, which is Rojo's father's name, to Jolly and Roy's name, this document did not have his father's signatures appropriately, and that's when he knew that they had been fudged. So it became pretty evident.
Guess up.
Oh, amazing. So this basically came to a point where Rojo was like, did Jolly want the property? And is that what this is all about? But if that's the case, why? Why did she do it? Jolly was so loved as a daughter-in-law. What drove her to do all this? So again, Rojo, because he's a smart boy, he did not wait it out. He went down to the Kozhikode police station and immediately filed a complaint.
Good kid. Smart head on his shoulders. That's what you should do.
That is what you should do. Go to the police, guys. Please don't investigate these things.
I know.
This woman likely had cyanide on her. So definitely not in that case. So the Kozhikode Rural Superintendent of Police, KG Simon, reopened the case that Roy had filed in 2011. This one that he had filed for suspected foul play in the death of Roy. To this complaint, an additional angle of property dispute was now introduced.
So we have some basic information here, but that's not enough. Remember, this case only relates to Roy. So far, we have a body, a potential murder weapon, the cyanide that was in his system, and some evidence pertaining to a property dispute.
Right.
Is this enough to arrest someone? Not entirely. So the police did some digging.
I love it when the police do digging because like it's their job. And and I really particularly enjoy it when a case sort of opens up before our very eyes. That's how I realized we should be doing the research for this case.
Yeah,
It just made sense to
correct.
read it that way.
Yeah,
And we just wanted to present it that way to you guys too.
I really like it. I like this format.
Yeah.
So the investigations revealed something interesting.
Mhm.
So remember how Jolly said that she had a bachelor's and master's degree in commerce?
Right.
Yeah, that was a lie.
Okay.
She had enrolled for a bachelor's degree but was never awarded one by college.
I mean, yeah, that's a pretty big lie.
Come, we'll also go enroll for veterinary science, and tomorrow onwards I am doctor. So remember that job she took up as a teacher in local college after her husband lost her job?
Yes.
Yeah, that was also a lie.
Okay, of course. What is she doing?
She apparently used to spend this time at a beauty parlor that was run by a friend in a nearby town.
Like she would work? She would just hang out there?
She just hang out there watching
Wow.
other people getting their eyebrows done. Yes.
Okay, all right. What about the NIT thing?
Right. The prestigious job at the National Institute of Technology in Kozhikode.
Yes. What about? Oh no.
It was also a lie.
Okay, of course it was.
A quick check of the employee list from the year 2000 onwards showed that Jolly wasn't even a temporary worker.
All right then.
The registrar of the college would later go on to start an internal investigation to understand, did she really embezzle any funds from the college?
Okay. Mix. Oh, that's a whole other angle. I don't think I've seen
Right?
that anywhere. Yeah.
So for 14 years, Jolly had been wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone around her had presumed that this mask was her real identity.
Wow, that was a beautiful line to end on. But no, there's more to the story. So this gave the police enough substance to arrest her because, they did their job. They went around and got enough evidence. And on October 15th, 2019, she was arrested. Jolly was 47 years old at this time.
Man, what a sneaky little criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Now they just have to put together a clear criminal timeline and just prove the case against Jolly.
Sure, or Jolly could just confess.
Wow.
Yeah, literally minutes after she was arrested, Jolly was like, yeah, I did it. I did it. 6 of them. I killed 6 of them. Yeah, she went right out and she cooperated like nobody's business.
Can you imagine that situation where the police is like, you're arrested on the murder of what? Yes, I killed all 6 of 6.
Yeah,
What?
exactly. That is exactly how it went down because the police were like, okay, Roy's murder is suspicious. Let's investigate that. That really is what they did. They
Correct.
may have uncovered the rest, but remember, a lot of these murders happened over 14 years.
Yep.
And, there was really no link to some of them as well. And nobody had suspected anything at the time. To exhume bodies so late also would be a little difficult. So they really expected her, if, with some pressure, that she might say, yes, I killed Roy. But she agreed to 6 murders at the same time. She also admitted that they were killed using various poisons. So Annamma, who was her first kill in 2002, was given a poison called dog kill, which is actually used to euthanize dogs. So she admitted that she gave this to Annamma because Annamma was snooping around and trying to find out Jolly's educational credentials. Tom Thomas, who was also asking similar questions, although not, with the same aggression that Annamma was, he was also given poisoned food, but this time it was laced with potassium cyanide.
We asked this question when we did our first episode ever on cyanide, Malika. And I'm going to ask it again. Where do these people get cyanide from?
Oh, I mean, it's pretty much a very similar source as Malika as well. She knew 2 men, Praji Kumar and MS Matthew. They were friends sort of hers and they ran a jewelry store.
Ah, right.
Yep,
Because
yep,
back
yep.
then when we did the Cyanide Malika episode, we also said that she got access to potassium cyanide from a jewelry store because
Yes.
it's used to buff stone and polish diamonds.
That is exactly correct. And these two men were also arrested for their involvement. Another man was also arrested in this case. This is a former Communist Party leader, E. Manoj Kumar. He allegedly prepared fake documents for Jolly to help her get the property in her name. We're not going into these guys as much, though. Let's focus on Jolly.
So I have one question here. If Jolly was unemployed for these 14 long years, how is she bringing in any money for the household?
I'm glad you asked, Nisha. I don't really know. So there are some conflicting reports here, but let's look into them. So there were some newspapers in October 2019 that said that Jolly was involved in a series of scams where she swindled money from many businessmen.
Whoa.
So it's estimated that she somehow managed to extract about 50 lakh rupees from them. These men, though, did not want to file a report because this case kind of got really big and they didn't want to get dragged into that media frenzy, which, I mean, it'll also be a little embarrassing to them, right? There's another report that reveals something a lot more disturbing. Trigger warning here for descriptions of sex trafficking. So it is reported by multiple publications that Jolly was running a sex trafficking ring out of the flats near the premises at the National Institute of Technology. Sources say that this was revealed when the investigation determined that the flats were registered in Jolly's name. However, it is said that the trafficking ring itself did not make Jolly the money. It was the fact that Jolly would use this information to blackmail her clients, who apparently were really influential people. Yeah, and then she would extract, or extort money from them. Sources do say that this racket ran into some billions of rupees, though.
If that was the case, why did she have to murder her father-in-law for his property? It was an ancestral house in a small town, not some massive property, Antilla or something like that. Wouldn't she just have been making far more money with just this racket of hers?
Yeah, that does seem a little suspect. It is also suspect that all the charge sheets that were filed against Jolly were for murders and for none of this other stuff, So I think this whole bit about where she was making her money is going to remain a void. We might not really know. Maybe we might find out, once the witness testimony start coming in and this actually goes to trial. But as far as right now, these allegations kind of going nowhere.
Nice. So it's hella sus, bro.
It is.
So over the span of many weeks from October 2019 to February 2020, more news would come out that would absolutely take Kerala by storm.
Yep.
Now remember, this was just before the pandemic. People were very bored. This tragic news that was unfolding on their news, it was entertaining to them. It absolutely enraptured the minds of the state that this woman, this unassuming wife and mother, would go on to murder so many people in her family.
Right.
So the first charge sheet was filed before the court on 1st January 2020. It was 8,000 pages in all.
Whoa! Okay.
Yep. So it focused on the murder of Roy and names Jolly as the prime accused. The other accused are the men who got her the cyanide, that's Praji Kumar and MS Matthew, and Manoj Kumar for document forgery.
All right.
The charge sheet listed 246 witnesses and Jolly's entire confession.
246 witnesses were listed.
Indeed.
But that means...
I feel like that's the entire town that they were staying.
No, so usually how it works in charge sheets is you only put in what's relevant, which means they may have interviewed thrice this number.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Damn.
That's a lot of work for the police in such a short
Yeah, I know.
I don't like people at all. They have to talk to them. Ew.
Ugh. But Jolly cooperated wholeheartedly with the police and it showed. They put information in there that only she could have known, such as the last meal that Roy had, which was his favorite, rice and kadla curry. The charge sheet also said that 2 bottles of potassium cyanide were recovered from the Ponnamattam house.
Okay.
So, murder weapon procured.
All right.
The charge sheet also said Jolly had added cyanide not just to his food, but also to a glass of water. She knew that Roy would be drunk, which means that he may not eat, but he would definitely be thirsty. So why take risk? She had gone upstairs to her kid's room and pretended to sleep, all the while listening to what was going on downstairs. After she knew he had eaten the food, she went downstairs. She heard Roy choking and collapsing in the bathroom. But she spent that time cleaning up the food and the vessels before going to the bathroom to find him.
What?
Yeah.
This man was her husband.
Yeah, but she's already murdered 2 people.
Oh,
so
right.
far.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
I don't know why that justifies anything. I was like, yes, that makes sense.
There's no humanity left in her anymore, I think.
Got it. I get that, yeah.
If she was Voldemort, she already has 2 Horcruxes.
Oh. I forgot. Oh my God, that's true.
Oh my God, did she murder 6 people?
Yeah,
Oh.
that makes it. I was literally just thinking that. I was like, wait, maths is not my strong suit, but 6 people murder means 7 Horcrux. 6
Yes,
Horcrux
correct.
and 1 still in her body. You know what? Please go on.
Yes. The investigation also brought up some additional evidence, such as trails of money that she received from Tom, her father in law. One such trail was Tom's insurance payout after his death. Guess who was the benefactor?
Let me guess. Is it Jolly?
Bing, bing, bing. You got the answer.
Dude, that's pretty incriminating. That's
Indeed.
slight novice levels of crime doing. Yes, let me change the insurance payments to my name 3 hours before the person died. Not that necessarily happened here, but it gets, if you're the beneficiary for this, it's pretty creepy.
Yep.
So, charge sheet number 2 was filed on 17 January 2020. This one was 1,020 pages with 165 witnesses. This focuses on the murder of Silly, who was Shaju's first wife.
Yeah.
It is specified that Silly was given mushroom pills that were laced with cyanide. Now, witnesses say that she was choking and frothing in the mouth and eventually collapsed. Silly's older son says that he saw his mother was in pain. And surprise, surprise, Jolly was there to distract him.
Oh God.
So she gave Silly's older son some money and asked him to go buy ice cream. When the son came back, his mother was dead.
Oh, that is traumatic as hell for that child.
It really is. The third charge sheet, which was filed on 25th January 2020. This focused on the murder of Silly and Shaju's daughter Alphine. Trigger warning again, descriptions of the murder of a child. Now, this charge sheet is a little over 1,000 pages with 139 witnesses. This one is particularly upsetting because the child in question was 2 years old. The charge sheet also states that the day in question was spent at a local church and Silly was part of some festivities there, and she had given her daughter Alphine to relatives to babysit. Now, when Alphine started crying at one point, Jolly offered to feed her some bread and gravy, and the child started crying harder a few minutes later. Everyone assumed this was because the chicken gravy was too spicy for the child. Right after this, however, the child stopped crying for a while, and no one suspected anything because they just assumed she was no longer hungry. But the poor child had passed away. Now, the investigation revealed some terrible things. One, that the eyewitnesses saw Jolly thoroughly wash her hands right after feeding this child. This was to get the poison off her hands. Second thing was, after being told that the child had passed away, Jolly packed up some food from the ceremony to take home and eat. This made it extremely evident that Jolly had felt no guilt whatsoever. She just decided, well, I guess I need to eat. And she just packed up food from the ceremony and took it home. So the intent with the murder of Silly was probably to marry Shaju.
Right.
And she wanted to, get rid of the family members in the way to get to that point, essentially.
Sure, but did a child really have to die for that? Like, why?
So investigators revealed that she thought that the child would be like a financial burden to her and Shaju in the future. And that's why she decided to kill the child as well. It's also revealed that Jolly was present at Silly's funeral and that both Shaju and Jolly leaned forward and kissed Silly's face together as some sort of disgusting last goodbye. Now, this would also contradict Shaju's claim, which he maintained throughout the investigation, that he had nothing to do with the murders of the family members.
And yet he would never be arrested.
Yes, that is sus across the board.
So the fourth charge sheet, filed on 4th February 2020, focused on Matthew, who was Roy's uncle who suspected foul play in his murder. So this one was 2,016 pages with about 718 witnesses.
Okay.
It says she gave Matthew cyanide twice. Once mixed in a bottle of whiskey that she was returning to him, and once more mixed in some water.
Wow, she really double tapped it. She really did her best to make sure they died.
She had like backup plans on backup plans.
I swear.
Jolly also pushed not to have an autopsy, and she asserted that Matthew had died from a heart failure post his angioplasty. So the investigators found that Matthew's doctors had conducted an angiogram 10 days prior to his death, and he had received a clean bill of health at the time.
Oh, that's pretty incriminating.
Yep. So the final charge sheet was filed on 19th February 2020. Do you want to guess how many pages?
No, it's a terrible game. I don't want to.
1,069 pages, 175 witnesses. This one was about Annamma. It states that on that fateful evening, Annamma had complained about feeling weak. Jolly made mutton soup for her and had added the dog kill poison in it. This was directly a response to Annamma questioning Jolly's educational qualifications as well as her job at a NIT.
Right.
This was Jolly's first kill and the one that pushed her to keep on going at it.
Yeah, and this, like the first kill that arose from the first lie, and then it was lie after lie after lie after
Yep.
that, and it just would not end.
Correct. Oh, that reminds me. It was revealed during the investigation that witnesses stated Jolly may have tried to poison about 5 other children.
What?
Yeah.
Is this a game? I don't
I have no
understand
idea.
this.
So apparently the poison didn't take and the children survived. In response to this, the police said, "It is good that we found this out now. Otherwise, the deaths could have probably continued."
Okay, that's a weirdly
Yeah.
casual response
I
to
know.
the killing of potentially multiple children.
Yeah. But to be honest, let's give the police a break here. I find it very odd that multiple people died in a very similar way, but till 2018, no one decided to file a complaint.
I mean, Rojo did right after Roy died.
Yeah.
But also, he did come out of the media and say that Jolly sort of really pushed him to withdraw the complaint. His position at the time was, oh, it's likely that Roy probably may have committed suicide.
Right.
But later, more recently in the media, he's been saying Jolly pushed him to withdraw the complaint.
Sure, but think of the work that the police have done in a very little time. They interviewed thousands of witnesses, right? And
Right.
filed almost 12,000 pages of paperwork.
Yeah.
God knows how many papers of supporting documentation, all in just 6 months after the first arrest.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Kerala police chief Loknath Behra himself said that the 14-year gap between the cases made it very hard to collect and present evidence. Apparently, 6 teams were constituted under a special investigation unit that was assigned to procure forensics and testimonies and things like that.
Man, I will be honest, the cases where the police really comes together and they're just like,
Yeah.
you know what? We are detectives at the end of the day. Even
know.
if someone confesses to a crime, that's usually not enough,
Correct.
as is to be able
Yeah.
to just get a conviction. And you need a conviction in cases like this is a really high profile case.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is collect evidence to the point that you're able to prove this. Also, any defense, team is going to try to at least
Correct. Yeah.
get her, at least get the punishment to be lowered at the very least, right? But you as prosecution want to make sure you get the highest possible punishment for her, which means evidence on evidence on evidence to the point that you prove, listen, this person is just not a good person.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
collect that kind of evidence, like you said, thousands of witnesses, 12,000 pages of paperwork, that's not a joke.
It's not.
I am quite in awe, I have to say.
It's funny, the last time that we were so in awe of the police was during the Cyanide Malika case. And they were at different police departments. They came together and then they did the investigation and they caught her. Yeah, okay, she had her location on her phone. But still,
That's true.
they came together and they found all the evidence and everything. So I guess the moral of the story is don't use cyanide. The police will do their job and put you in jail.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually very easy to find cyanide in someone's system. It lingers for a while, even at later autopsies. So pick a poison.
No, don't continue that statement. Let's just take a break right here.
All right.
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Wire Talks, Siddharth talks to former Secretary General PDT Achari, who sheds light on words being banned from usage in Parliament. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Ayushi, Akash and Antarish discuss the controversy surrounding Smriti Irani's family restaurant in Goa. On The Habit Coach, Ashton speaks about how a nursery rhyme can be surprisingly inspirational for adults. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita throw light on the rise in investments in plant-based meat. And on the Life Manifesto, Zarina helps you identify energy vampires and gives you tips on how to deal with them. Once again, everybody, remember we have amazing merchandise available. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/store or go to our website and you'll be able to see the link. Do check this out. Do buy some stuff. It really does help us out. Do remember, follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Remember, if you do tell a friend about a show and they listen to the show, you'll have somebody to talk to the show about. We'd really appreciate it also if you could give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And finally, do remember we're also available on YouTube. A number of our shows are available as full video shows, but every show is available on YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, both Lifestyle, Small Case, Capgemini, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back, everyone, after the break. Now, the thing with interesting cases such as Jolly Joseph is that there's always a movie about it or a TV show at least, which always like badly represent everyone and we always complain about it. Raghavi would have seen it. I'll be like, what does that mean? But in Jolly's case, it is both. Also, there was a podcast.
Yes.
So in October 2019, the same month that Jolly was arrested, it was announced that Anthony Perambavur, a Malayali filmmaker, will be directing a movie based on this case. A famous yesteryear Malayali actor, Mohanlal, will be playing the investigating officer in this case.
Right.
No word yet on who gets to play Jolly. Who would you pick, Raghavi?
No one.
Yes, correct. Because
Yeah.
this movie was announced in October 2019.
Yeah.
October 2019, the
Yeah.
same month that Jolly was arrested.
Yeah.
And just the initial details of the murder of one of the family members came out. That's
Yep.
it. They looked at that one news article and they were like, Mohanlal? That's what happened.
I like that they didn't think about Jolly
Yeah.
as a portrayal. It was
don't care.
immediately, how do we make this about a man?
Yes. So it would take at least another month after the of her arrest before it was made clear that other people were also killed and that people other than Jolly were even involved. In fact, the charge sheets that we've listed would not be filed completely till February 2020.
Right.
But this movie, this movie is announced in October 2019.
That's great.
If this doesn't give away the extremely exploitative nature of the filmmaking industry, I don't know what does. I, for one, will not watch this movie whenever it does come out.
I mean, you don't watch movies anyway.
Fair, but this is a principle thing.
Ah, okay, fine. Sure, I guess there's a leeway here. In a less exploitative fashion, though, the year 2020 saw a 10-episode podcast that was released on Jolly called Death, Lies and Cyanide. We've heard it. It's amazing. The tone is equal parts inquisitive and informative. Of course, it's much longer. There are bits which are, there's like interviews and translations of those and, translations of the charge sheets as well. Obviously, a lot more detail than this podcast. It is a very interesting listen. We highly recommend it. 2020 also saw a stay order from the Kerala High Court. So, continuing on the whole exploitation angle, there was a TV show that was released by the name Kudatai in January 2020.
Not even 6 months after the arrest.
That's right. And at first, the High Court said, we can't stay it, let them air it. What's the big deal? But the police came in and said, excuse me, this particular TV series could impede the ongoing investigation. Investigation is still on. We haven't filed anything, And, obviously when investigations happen, a ton of money and time is spent in this stuff. And trials like this should not have outside influences. So finally, the High Court agreed and they stayed the show from airing entirely. There is also a book on this entire story, which came a little later. It's by a crime author called Saurabh Mukherjee, and the book is called Death Served Cold, and it released in 2020 sometime. Now, we haven't read this one, but we are given to understand that it's a non-fictional account, and the author took some time to investigate the matter before reading the book. So, not a direct recommendation, but if this is true, then kudos to the author. Yep. Thank God is what I have to really say. Now, Jolly herself remained in the news for a while after the charge sheets were filed. In February 2020, multiple publications reported that Jolly had attempted to commit suicide while at the Kozhikode district prison. Now, Jolly had been on suicide watch since her arrest. In fact, at many of her bail hearings, the prosecution had stated that her mental state was such that if she was left unsupervised, then she might attempt to kill herself. This was taken into account by the courts and the prison wardens, and Jolly was also not permitted to be put in solitary confinement or spend any time by herself in prison. An investigating officer said of the incident, it happened at 4:50 a.m. There were 3 other inmates in the cell with Jolly. They immediately informed the warden. Following this, Jolly was first admitted to the district hospital and then the Kozhikode Medical College Hospital. Her condition is stable.
To add to the misery of it all, in August 2021, it was reported that Jolly's second husband, Shaju, filed for divorce. Reports say that he is seeking the divorce because he's scared of her and what she's done. Shaju said in his petition filed before the Kozhikode family court, Jolly has a very deadly mindset. Therefore, I want a divorce. As you may remember, Jolly and Shaju got married in 2017, about a year after the untimely deaths of Shaju's first wife, Silly, and his 2-year-old daughter, Alfine. Shaju maintained in his petition that he was not aware of Jolly's actions, especially that she killed his first wife and daughter. Shaju is also quoted as saying that when he got together with Jolly, he thought she was still a professor at NIT Calicut. He also said he never connected her to the murders in her family, which is, hard to believe.
As you're telling me this, I feel like it's a little too convenient. Like, it's this woman that you're in love with, and he says that he married her so quickly. Remember earlier, there's also a neighbor that said within 3 months of Silly's death, she's I'm gonna marry this dude. Pretty suspect though, overall.
Correct. Shaju's advocate, Mr. Manohar Lal, said to the press, and we quote, when Shaju got married to Jolly, he never knew she was behind these murders. It is only during the police investigation that he came to know Jolly was the accused. They got married as both of them were widowed. If Jolly comes out on bail or once the case is over, there will be a threat to his life if they live together. Additionally, in the petition filed before the court, Shaju represented that he escaped from being killed by sheer luck, and the continuation of the marriage with the defendant, that is Jolly, who is having this particular state of mind, would put his life in danger.
Apparently, by the way, Shaju was also pissed that Jolly tried to implicate him in parts during the confessions that she made before the police. I think she kind of thought that he would just play along, I don't know. I don't even feel like she took a lot of this very seriously. I'm not too sure.
If you are sitting there confessing to 6 murders, why would you choose this moment to lie about him being a co-accused?
Maybe just to distribute the blame a bit. Because...
for what? You're going to jail anyway. So it's just like, I'm going down, I'll take you down with me.
Yes.
I see.
Definitely that. Apparently, sources say that Jolly tried to get him listed as a co-accused. So...
You said that?
No, that was before. I said only
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
So if at the very least, I think the presumption for her would be, if he shares the blame for Silly and his daughter's deaths, then maybe I can get off a little earlier. Unfortunately, I feel like she doesn't realize this is definitely going to attract the death penalty.
Death penalty? I think so too.
Yeah, or at the very least, life imprisonment.
So I guess she just tried to name him also as a co-accused. It could be true also. Especially if Shaju was accomplice to the murder of his first wife and child. But now I guess it's all moot because he's not listed as any co-accused in any manner in any of the charge sheets. And there have been 5 different charge sheets. So we'll just go with that.
That's right. And that brings us to the end of the Jolly Joseph saga.
But it's not the end because we still have the trial left.
No, yes. You and I, we are done. This episode is done. Yeah, because there's really nothing else left to say here. Back in 2019, it was made very clear that collection of evidence or the lack thereof has made it very difficult for the investigators to get to the bottom of this case. Even today, we have charge sheets, but we don't have evidence presentation or witness cross-examination because the case hasn't gone to trial yet. Things are also so muddled that the police have requested Rojo, who is the brother of Roy Thomas, and Rojo is also the man who filed the initial complaint, by the way. They've requested Rojo to return from the US and remain in India till the investigation and other formalities are completed.
Whoa.
The last we heard of any developments in this case was in April 2022, when it was reported that additional forensic evidence was procured for the cases concerning Annama, Tom Thomas, Alpine, and Matthew. And the court had also approved for this evidence to be tested. From my understanding, this appears to be autopsies on bodies that had to previously be exhumed. Now, if traces of cyanide and other poisons are found through the autopsies of these victims, it would be much easier to establish a pattern with these deaths, and therefore it would be easier to establish beyond reasonable doubt that Jolly was the murderer. So far, Jolly has been denied bail multiple times between 2019 and 2020 under the argument, like you mentioned earlier, that she could potentially harm herself, but also that she would be a menace to society if she was released.
And we have to agree with that. Despite what the law has to say about Jolly Joseph, let's just take a minute to see where this whole story went.
Yeah.
Jolly is alleged to have killed 6 people over the span of 14 years. All the deaths have very similar suspicious circumstances. She was caught having lied multiple times about her own life and about the circumstances of their deaths. She doesn't really have any strong alibis for most of these murders.
Yep, and each time someone called her out on the lie, or something got mildly inconvenient for Jolly, someone died. Her parents-in-law, they suspected her job and income. Her husband, he was kind of an annoying alcoholic for her. Her uncle-in-law, who was, actually, you know what? He was the good one. I feel bad for him. He was genuinely trying to figure out what was going on.
But that's a problem for her, no?
I get it. I just feel bad. I realized as I said it. It's a problem for her, but man, I feel genuinely bad for him.
Yeah.
And lastly, of course, Shaju's former wife and kid, who are also, in a way, in her way.
That's the one I feel like most sad about. Like if they really wanted to be together, she should have just convinced him to divorce. Why would you why is your first thought murder?
I guess because it had happened so well so far.
Yeah, I guess so. And she
Nobody
got away
really
with it for
pushed.
so long. So she was just like, this is easier.
And she had tied all the loose ends.
That's true.
Realistically, if Rojo hadn't been like, what is going on? And come back and made this effort.
Yeah.
If anything, she underestimated Rojo's love for his brother.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Oh, wait. Do you think it was love for his brother or just anger at the fact that she got all this stuff and he didn't?
Oh, that's also possible.
Yes.
She underestimated how much property was important for everybody else in the family. You're
Exactly.
right.
At Silly's funeral, Raghavi mentioned this, Jolly and Shaju kissed Silly's cheek together. And then less than a year later, Jolly and Shaju were married. At her home, 2 bottles of cyanide were found. Her access to cyanide was easy to establish. When family members asked that the autopsies be performed on the victims, Jolly was always vehemently opposing it. At this point, we are just waiting for physical evidence because the circumstantial stuff is all there. But the physical evidence will decide, is Jolly Joseph an innocent person around whom just bad, awful things happened? Or is she a cold-blooded murderer?
Now that you guys are here at the end of season 3, we ask you to patiently wait while we come back with more crime in season 4.
Stop bullying us in the break. Yes.
No, that's so sad. Write to us. We really like when you write to us. But no, I know we're on break, but you can still listen to our old episodes. In fact, the more you listen to them, the easier it is going to be for us to pitch
Season 200. Yes.
Yeah, essentially. So please go listen to all of our old episodes on whichever platforms you would like. We're, of course, on the IVM Podcast Network and any place where podcasts are. Just listen, we'll pick it up. We'll pick up the analytics for sure.
Yeah, but don't just listen. Talk about it, write about it, tell your friends, review us. Reviews are what gets us more listens. So you have like Apple Podcasts, you can review us there, Audible, you can write us little comments on YouTube.
Yes.
And yeah, Spotify, you can give us stars on Spotify.
Yes, that's right. We're also on Instagram. Our Instagram page is Misconduct Pod. We have true crime content, updates in the podcast, reels, memes. We will update you on what my cats are up to.
Yes.
During the break, because that really is all I have for the time that I'm not working on the podcast.
And we will see you on the next season of Misconduct.
What is the workplace and how does your gender and body affect your right at work? Hey, I'm Priya Mirza, and on the Longest Constitution podcast, we critically examine the vision of the Indian Constitution and laws. In season 1, we looked at sex, gender, sexuality in India, and the landmark judgments which transformed our rights as citizens in this country. In season 2, we discussed the laws which shape the workplace and examine how ability, competence, and merit impact us, and much more. Join me, Priya Mirza, every Wednesday only on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all the major podcast streaming platforms.
Ladies, I'm sure you will relate to it if I say that we are constantly busy with work, studies, cooking, and what not. And amidst all of this, we often forget an important element that needs our desperate attention: finance. So here we are, bringing to you SBI Life presents A Sip of Finance, a women-exclusive podcast where we will teach you how to manage personal finances in a simple and straightforward way with your host, Priyanka Acharya, a finance expert who's been in the industry for 14 plus years. And not just in English, but in 7 more languages. So tune in every Tuesday for fresh episodes on the IVM Podcast Network and all major podcast streaming platforms.